Greetings, chess players. My name is Chris Torres, and this is my daily chess musing for Wednesday, May 26th, 2021. The FTX Crypto Cup is a high-level online Bitcoin chess tournament and holds a record prize pot for an online tournament of $320,000. As you've probably heard, this is one of the strongest lineups ever assembled, featuring all of FIDE's top 10 ranked chess players. This Clash of the Titans is one of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour, 10 online chess tournaments presenting the world's top players playing for a prize money pool of $1.5 million. So far, it has been quite an exciting series. The 3 preliminary rounds of the FTX Crypto Cup have concluded, and there were 2 games that I found particularly gripping. Let's take a look before the knockout competition begins tomorrow. So the first game I want to show you this evening was played between Alan Pacho and Anish Giri in round 1 of the FTX Crypto Cup preliminaries. Alan plays 1e4. And Giri opts for the Sicilian. Knight f3, knight c6, 3d4, and Pacho is playing the usual Sicilian ideas. 3cx d4, knight takes d4, and e5. Giri choosing 4e5, which is a far less popular move than knight f6, e6, or g6. However, it was all the rage in the 1940s. If you're interested in this approach, I suggest taking a look at the exciting Louis-Charles Mahe de la Bourdonnais and Alexander McDonnell match from 1834, in which 4e5 was on prominent display. White plays 5, knight b5, d6. This is the Kalashnikov variation in which black accepts the backward pawn on d6 in exchange for time earned while chasing white's knight. 6c4. Pacho chooses 6c4 instead of the calmer 6 knight 1 to c3. This pawn formation is known as the Maroczy bind. Made famous by Geza Maroczy, white c and e pawns control the d5 square, making it difficult for black to play the freeing pawn to d5. However, the disadvantage of this approach for white is a weak d4 square. 6g6. Giri must have done secret prep on this rarely played move. Black almost always chooses to post their bishop on e7 rather than fianchettoing it. 7, knight 1 to c3, and then a6. White's knight must retreat to a3. 8, knight a3, bishop g7. 9, knight to c2. A much better square for the knight than a3, in which it guards against black playing knight d4. 9, knight f6. 10, bishop e2. Castle. 11, bishop e3, and bishop e6. On move 12, white castles. Both sides have developed their minor pieces and castled. Giri responds with 12, rook to c8. This is a fairly common approach in these kinds of positions. The idea is placing the rook into the c-file before the b5 pawn break. Additionally, black can evaluate knight a5 or knight e7 to put direct pressure on the c4 pawn. 13, f3, solidifying white's control of the light squares, but black has some tempting dark squares to eyeball. 13, knight h5. Giri certainly could have gone with the aforementioned knight a5 or knight e7 plan, but instead he moves his knight to h5. From here, knight f4 looks like a great outpost for the knight, and this move also allows the dark squared bishop greater influence. 14, knight d5. Pacho places his knight on the nice d5 outpost. 14, bishop takes d5. Giri says no thank you to his opponent's plan and captures it with the bishop. 15, queen takes d5. If white captured back with the c-pawn, then perhaps black could retreat the knight to b8 with the idea of redeveloping it to d7. For instance, 15, cx d5, knight b8. 16, queen to d2, unifying rooks, and now white seems pretty good here. It's hard to say whether Giri would have continued by placing his knight on the f4 outpost or advancing f7 to f5, or maybe a combination of both, such as knight f4, knight a3, then f5, knight c4, b5, knight to b6, and rook c7. Would have been an interesting continuation and is worthy of consideration. Alternatively, after 15 cx d5, black could play 15 knight d4, which is a typical move in the Kalashnikov where black gives up a pawn, but after 16 knight takes d4, ex d4, bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4 check, 18 queen x d4, knight f4, threatening the bishop, 19 rook f2, and here we see some good attacking chances gained for the price of the pawn. For instance, 19 h5, king h1, h4. Black's queen seems poised to move to g5, and black's rook on c8 is quite powerful. White has an extra pawn, but their bishop on e2 isn't looking very good at all, as it is being blocked by its own pawns. Alas, Alan Pacho played 15 queen takes d5, so we return to our actual game. And Anish Giri plays 15 knight d4, traps white's queen by blocking its escape while threatening both the bishop on e2 and knight on c2. 16 bishop d3. An obvious response to the fact that the knight and bishop were under attack is to use the bishop to defend the knight. It's worth pointing out that 16 knight takes d4 doesn't work, because after 16 ex d4, white would be forced to play bishop d2 because bishop takes d4 leads to a nasty fork with 17 knight f4. So back to the actual game after 16 bishop d3. 16 b5. Giri would have probably liked to have played queen d7 here to protect the b7 pawn with the idea of rook c5. However, if black plays 16 queen d7, 17 queen a5, then black allows white's queen to escape to a5. So to solve this problem, Anish Giri played b5 on move 16. So after 16 b5, Alan Pacho plays 17 knight takes d4, because if after 17 bishop takes d4, black drops a fork on him. So back to the actual game, 17 knight takes d4, and move 17 black, ex d4. Giri threatens the bishop on e3, and remember that white's queen is still stuck in the middle. 18 bishop g5, threatening Giri's queen. 18 queen b6, which moves to b6, taking b7 from white's queen. 19 cx b5, which would allow 19 rook c5, but the alternatives for white would have also lost material. For instance, if 19 e5, then bx c4, 20 bishop takes c4, bishop takes e5, 21 bishop d3, bishop f4, 22 bishop takes f4, knight takes f4, queen e4, knight takes d3, queen takes d3, and queen takes b2 was likely the best continuation for white, but still leaves black winning. And the other possibility worth looking at is 19 g4, which is exciting, but doesn't work because 19 rook c5, gx h5, bx c4, bishop takes c4, rook takes d5, bishop takes d5, d3 check, and black is firmly in command. But back to the actual game. White plays 19 cx b5, and then 19 rook c5. Everything from black's move 16 b5 was leading to this moment. 20 queen b3, rook takes g5. Giri is now up a piece. However, it is still tricky because of white's next move. 21 bx a6, and Alan Pacho has a deep pass pawn, so Giri must employ excellent technique. 21 queen takes b3. Trading queens while ahead in material is a good start. AXB3, knight f4. Now the knight moves to the outpost with a fork. 23, bishop c4. Rook takes g2 check. 24, king h1. Rook takes b2. An important capture which opens up a discovered attack for the bishop on g7. 25, rook f to b1, rook c2. 26, rook c1. d3, a beautiful pawn push which supports the rook on c2 while exposing white's rook on a1. 27, rook takes c2. Bishop takes e1. Giri makes the most precise capture. 28, rook c1. Bishop to d4. Finds safety while keeping white's king boxed in the corner and guarding a7. 29, rook d1. Bishop c5. 30, h4. Pacho's king can now enter the endgame. 30, king g7. But so does Giri's with an extra piece at his disposal. 31, king h2. King f6. 32, king g3, king e5, and Alan Pacho resigns as his loss is inevitable.
Does the secret to rapid chess improvement lie deep inside the shape of a pyramid? California chess coach and correspondence chess master Chris Torres believes so, and is inviting chess players everywhere to harness the power of the pyramid in chess.
Correspondence chess, known as daily chess on chess.com, is an important tool I use to catalyze chess improvement in my top students. Almost immediate positive effects can be seen in students new to correspondence chess because each player has significantly more time per move, which results in more careful play and thus higher quality games.
So, how will the Daily Chess Musings rated correspondence chess pyramid work?
The central hub for players to register, check standings, and request matches will be dailychessmusings.com. All pyramid games will be played on chess.com under the Daily Chess Musings rated correspondence pyramid as daily chess matches. When a game finishes, the players will record their results on dailychessmusings.com so it can be submitted for rating purposes to the United States Chess Federation. A pyramid stepladder is something that is unfamiliar to most chess players and thus requires a brief explanation. In a nutshell, players may only challenge somebody who is placed above them on the same level or who is one of the 4 levels immediately above them. For example, a player on level 20 can challenge anybody placed above him or her on level 20, or anybody on level 16 through 19 inclusive. Therefore, the number 1 player may only be challenged by somebody on level 5 or above.
How do I sign up for the Daily Chess Musings rated correspondence chess pyramid?
Easy! Go to dailychessmusings.com and register. In addition, you will need to remain a current member of the United States Chess Federation for the duration of your play in the correspondence chess rated pyramid. Have or create a chess.com account. Join the Daily Chess Musings rated correspondence pyramid on chess.com. Pay a one-time entry fee of $25, good for all the games you play this coming year in the Daily Chess Musings rated correspondence pyramid. Pay a $5 renewal fee for every additional year you wish to participate.
Make sure to reserve your spot today. Games begin on June 1st, 2021.
I hope to see you on June 1st in the Daily Chess Musings rated correspondence chess pyramid on chess.com. Now let's move to my other favorite game from the preliminaries, which occurred in Day 2. Here we'll look at Magnus Carlsen versus Alexander Grischuk. 1b3. Magnus starts the game in hypermodern fashion by preparing to fianchetto the queenside bishop. 1e5. Grischuk responds conventionally by placing a pawn in the center on the first move. 2. Bishop b2. This first move b3, followed by a quick fianchetto, is known as the Nimzowitsch-Larsen attack, named after the great hypermodern strategist Aaron Nimzowitsch and famously unorthodox Danish grandmaster Jørgen Bent Larsen. 2. Knight c6. 3. c4. 3 e3 is the main line here. 3. Knight f6. 4. Knight f3. Without a center pawn on e4, this developing move is begging Grischuk to respond with a pawn push to e4, which gains space while attacking Carlsen's knight. 4 e4. Grischuk takes the free space and the initiative. 5. Knight d4. Bishop c5. Black develops the bishop with a nice threat. 6. Knight f5. It looks a bit awkward that Magnus has moved his knight 3 times in the early going. Of course, if white was more developed, the knight on f5 would look more natural, as it is teaming up with the bishop on the weak g7 square. 6. d5. Grischuk hits the center while opening up a discovered attack on the knight on f5. At first glance, the obvious choice for Magnus seems to be playing knight takes g7 check. 7. Knight takes g7 check, and he does. 7. King f8, but now the knight is trapped. 8. Cx d5. Magnus responds by also threatening to capture a knight, but Grischuk has an interesting move here. 8. Bishop d4, and he plays it. Let's take a look at the plan behind 8. Bishop d4. If white plays 9. Bishop takes d4, then knight takes d4, 10 e3. And now black's knight is also trapped. In fact, let's take a moment to admire how both sides have simultaneously threatened and trapped each other's knights. And if black moves his knight to f5, white can calmly exchange his trapped knight with 11. Knight takes f5. Bishop takes f5, 12, knight c3, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, and 14, bishop c4. And now white would have the initiative, while black lost the ability to castle and has a compromised pawn structure. Fun stuff, but black has an important alternative on move 10 in this variation. So again, after 9, bishop takes f4, knight takes d4, 10 e3, black can play 10, king takes g7, ex d4, queen takes d5, knight c3, queen x d4, queen e2, rook d8. And this looks fine for black. All this is excellent food for thought. However, in our actual game, Magnus Carlsen responds to 8 bishop d4 with 9 knight to c3. And then Grischuk plays the prudent 9 knight to e7, 10 e3, bishop takes c3, 11 dx c3, which had me wondering what would have happened if Magnus played 11 bishop takes c3. Let's take a look. So 11 bishop takes c3, king takes g7, 12 f3, trying to develop the queen to f3 to add a second attacker on the pinned knight. Knight takes d5, but black would get to capture on d5 while threatening white's key bishop on c3. 13 bishop b2, white must step away in order to preserve that bishop. And then 13 queen e7, which gives black the time needed to turn the tables on white. 14 bishop c4, rook d8. And now black has the greater threats, which is why Magnus played 11 dx c3 instead of bishop takes c3. So back to our game. 11 dx c3. King takes g7. Now Grischuk is up material. 12 c4. Repins the knight on f6 while creating a pawn chain that acts as a shield against black's counterplay. Now white can start a kingside attack. 12 knight g6. Grischuk starts to address his problems, but 13 g4. Magnus is now on the attack. 13 h6 defends against a pawn push to g5, but only for a moment. 14 h4, because Magnus is just barreling forward with his pawns. And Grischuk plays 14c5, an unusual looking move which I'll explain in a moment. 15 bishop e2. Magnus develops his bishop to e2, but what if he simply played pawn to g5? Well, if 15 g5, hx g5, 16 hx g5. And now if black plays rook takes h1, white gets to play bishop takes f6 check, forking the king and queen. And this is why Grischuk played 14c5 in the actual game. Because 16 queen a5 check is made possible by black's 14th move. 17 queen d2, queen takes d2, king takes d2, rook takes h1, and black is easily winning. Play might continue. 19 bishop g2, rook takes a1, bishop takes a1, king g8, 21 bishop takes f6, bishop f5, 22 f4, ex f3, 23 bishop takes f3, rook e8. And now black makes use of his extra rook and shouldn't have any trouble earning the full point. But back to our actual game, where Magnus wisely played 15 bishop e2. King g8. Grischuk moves the king out of the pin, but his knight is still pinned to the rook. 16 queen c2. Magnus develops his queen to the most useful square. 16 rook h7. And now Grischuk moves his rook out of the pin as well. 17 castle queenside. Castling queenside gives Magnus access to attack with all of his pieces, while Grischuk's position just looks disorganized. 17 knight takes g4. Opening up the g-file seems like a poor choice by Grischuk, and is actually a little bit of hope chess. Grischuk is hoping Magnus places a rook into the g-file straight away, in which case he would likely be able to escape with a draw. 18 h5, but Magnus doesn't fall for it. However, let's take a quick look at what I was referencing with 18 rook d to g1. So had Magnus jumped into the open g-file with the rook immediately, black has h5, in which Grischuk simply supports the knight. 19 queen x e4, king f8, bishop takes g4, bishop takes g4, f3, bishop d7, rook takes g6, fx g6, 23 queen takes g6, queen e7. Magnus needs to add more force. Rook g1, and does. 24 queen takes e3, but not before Grischuk grabs the initiative with a check. 25 king b1, bishop g4. Beautiful interference with the queen and rook battery, thus placing the rook in peril. 26 rook takes g4, hx g4, queen takes h7, queen g1 check. 28 bishop c1, gx f3, queen f5 check, king g8, queen takes f3, and 30 queen g6 check. At this level is very drawish, which is why Magnus played 18 h5. So after 18 h5, Grischuk plays 18 knight f8, 19 queen takes e4, f5 to ward off the queen, 20 queen c2, knight takes f2 is a fork, but 21 rook hg1 checks the king and is definitely winning for white. King f7, 22 rook d to f1, putting the other rook into the action of the f-file. 22 queen h4, Grischuk defends the knight and is just trying to survive. 23 bishop e5, a big mistake by Carlsen, which leaves the door a crack open for Grischuk. Much better was 23 rook g2, first threatening to win the knight. Knight h1, bishop to d3, and then attacking black's last line of defense, the critical f5 pawn. 24 knight g3, 25 queen f2, and now black must abandon his king from the f-file, which means losing the knight and the game. King e8, queen takes g3, queen takes g3, rook takes g3. All of white's pieces are in the game, and black's pieces are poorly placed. At this level, Black can simply resign here. But Magnus missed the best continuation, leaving the door just a crack open for Grischuk by playing 23 bishop e5. 23 queen e4. Grischuk misses his golden opportunity, which would have been 23 queen e7, threatening Magnus's beautiful bishop. 24 queen b2, so Carlsen would defend it. Knight d7, and then Grischuk would have attacked it again, bishop f4. And now the bishop must go. Knight h3, but even here it can be hassled. 26 bishop g4. One last beautiful tactical try for white. 26 knight takes g1. FX g4 would lose, so black would definitely play knight takes g1. 27 bishop takes f5, rook g7. 28 bishop g6 check, king g8. 29 rook takes g1. And queen f6 to take away white's diagonal and checkmating threats. Queen takes f6, knight takes f6. And now black can shift away from survival mode and into defending a difficult endgame. 31 bishop takes h6, knight g4. 32 bishop takes g7, king takes g7. Of course white is still winning, but black can put up stiff resistance and potentially escape with a half point. But Grischuk missed this possibility and played 23 queen e4, to which Carlsen responded 24 queen c3, knight h3, and now I'll give you a minute to find Magnus's winning move. (25) rook g4. Boom! Magnus makes use of a pin and traps Grischuk's queen. A brilliant ending to a brilliant chess game. What a fantastic example of chess artistry. There is sure to be more to come in the next several rounds. Be sure to keep watching. The official tournament site is at championschesstour.com, and chess24.com has promised to provide free coverage with multiple streams for chess fans of all levels and nationalities. Additionally, FTX will be displaying the fluctuations in the prize fund value in real time throughout the event. I hope you enjoyed today's daily chess musing and are excited to follow all the action during the strongest chess tournament in history by tuning into the Daily Chess Musings YouTube channel for daily recaps of the 2021 FTX Crypto Cup. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Chess Musings Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter at Torres Chess. Join our free Daily Chess Musings club on chess.com. and peruse through thousands of free chess lessons on dailychessmusings.com. And with that, I bid you adieu until tomorrow. My name is Chris Torres, and this has been my Daily Chess Musing. Before you go, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons.